It's been about 2 weeks now that I've been using the brand new Razr 2024 and the Razr Plus 2024, also known as the Razr 50 Ultra and the Razr basically 50. The biggest thing about the two differences between the US and the European market are basically just what it's packaged with, charger and so on. But with that being aside, all of the improvements from the 2023 edition of both of these devices are substantial. Namely, the standard Razr is now almost looks like the actual Razr Plus from 2023 with that large 3.6-inch display on the outside, and the Plus edition went up all the way to 4 inches on the outside, making it almost look like the entire panel next to the camera is actually a display on the brand new 2024 edition. So, without further ado, this is my review and my recommendation to which one you should pick up, but also all of the cool features that are packed inside of these devices by Motorola. Let's check them out. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. If you haven't watched the video yet, we did an unboxing and initial impressions on both of these devices literally 2 weeks ago when I got these devices. As we're looking here, we have two different colors. Those are the ones I actually received, and I do want to say thank you very much to Motorola for allowing me to have these devices to be able to review and also use. And I'll say this much, I've taken them with me around the world, all the way to Bangkok in Thailand. So we're going to see a lot of cool images and a lot of content from different places around the world. But in a long story, incredibly short, basically what we're getting here is this is the Razr Plus 2024. This is the brand new edition. One of the biggest things we'll notice, let's go ahead and close it up, is that beautiful large 4-inch display. Now this is an upgraded from what we had last year. It's still running at 165 hertz, and of course it is POLED, which also means we're running at 1080p just to support the same resolution as the 6.9-inch display that we have on the inside, also running at 165 hertz. So you notice there's a little bit of a continuity thing going on. Now one thing, and then we're going to get there, this is powered by the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3. This is an upgrade from what we saw with the 8 Plus Gen 1. And this is the Razr's 2024, and one of the things you'll notice overall is it looks a lot like the Razr Plus from last year. So one thing, obviously it's not exactly the same, the chin is a little bit bigger, but the material that we have here, the faux leather, is present on all of the devices and all the different models that we're getting. Experience, very nice, and it is a lot larger than what we had last year with that tiny display that pretty much didn't really do much other than just a small viewfinder. The camera stack that we have in here is also similar to what we had last year, but the experience on the outside display is up to 120 hertz, not 165, and still 1080p with POLED technology. The inside display, for the most part, if I put them next to each other, it's a little bit hard to tell, but this one runs at 120, again, 1080p, POLED, and one of the things you'll notice is the ecosystem is very similar. Now, there's different RAM and storage configurations depending on the model that you're getting. But the biggest thing I'll probably say is when we start looking at the cameras on the back. Let's go ahead and close this guy. The Razr Plus received, basically now we're looking at a new camera setup that we have in here. The rear cameras are basically a standard camera and a telephoto lens away from the ultra wide. And what we have here on the Razr standard one is we kept the ultra wide with a standard focal length. So the 50 megapixel primary is still present over here. As far as compatibility, dual SIM with eSIM support, they're both unlocked. They're going to start, depending on the market that you're in and depending on the carrier that you're in, the pricing will change. And of course, you just want to be able to check with your local retailers on those. But as far as the processor here, this is the Dimensity 7300X. So this is running a MediaTek chipset. Fingerprint sensor is present directly within the power button, volume rocker, microphone. On the top, we have the two microphones, the sensors on the front. The camera on the front, by the way, for both of them is 32 megapixels. On the bottom, we have the stereo speakers at the bottom, and of course, another microphone and the USB-C for data and charge connection there. On the side, we have the SIM tray that's going to allow us to insert obviously a physical SIM or even using an eSIM with this. The experience pretty much marries over here. One of the biggest things is that both of them are launching with Android 14 out of the box. I was promised during the launch event from Motorola is that the Razr Plus 2023 as well as the Razr Standard should be receiving Android 14 within the next month or so. So please be on the lookout for that if you guys are still rocking the original Razr. And one of the things they also did is they went away from that shiny, more, I would say reflective material, although I loved it with the blue color that we have in here. The blue one now has a very nice little racing stripe that's going on the back, but with that vegan leather. Very nice, continuing the color across the entire device, so you're not going to be disappointed in the sense of what you're getting there. So let's go ahead and unlock it. And of course, same shortcuts, home, lock screen, fingerprint sensor present on the side. You can use your options, of course, to unlock your device. The biggest thing I did want to show, just to kind of start off the conversation on the right path, is those external displays and what we can do with them. Just for size comparison, again, this is the Razr Plus 2023 edition, and that's how it compares to the brand new Razr. That's the standard model, the more affordable model that we have. And on the bottom here, we have the Z Flip 5. This is the model that we had from last year from Samsung. Anticipated from at least all the leaks and rumors that we've been seeing is that it's pretty much going to be the same experience. And you could definitely see the big difference between the displays. Not just going to the standard Razr, but I'm also talking to the Razr Plus. Making these devices obviously a little bit more functional. I will say a little bit that the Z Flip 5 obviously has a lot more benefit in the sense of what it got from the Z Flip 4. We're anticipating some updates to this, but for the most part, the experience on the front is going to be very much a similar experience. And we're still getting a much bigger display on both of these devices. The capabilities that we have on the front display here are almost endless because you can actually add almost every application that you want directly from your gallery by going in there and selecting which apps you want to show, putting them in there, and then making them accessible on the front display. Let's say you want to open up an application, let's say like Instagram, but I want to actually open up Instagram in more of a standard view, meaning just above the camera stack. So basically it doesn't fill up the entire display. This is typically what you'd expect for it to be. But you can also just bring it up to recent, say full screen, it's going to redraw it, and now we have it on the full display, giving us access to the entire stack, and of course looking at stories, posting content from it. Everything can be done directly from the lock screen, or at least from the external display. The beauty thing is that both of these experiences marry from both the Plus and the standard. The biggest difference is basically just the overall performance because we're looking at an 8S Gen 3 as opposed to a 7300X. But when we're looking at it here, so obviously we have 3 shortcuts in there. If there's any notifications on the bottom, you'll notice them right there. We can close them, open them up. We can swipe down from the top. We have access to our toggles. Of course, the notification, well, the slider bar, even the power button. But let's say I want to be able to launch applications, swipe to the right, access to my app drawer, the ones that I've selected. Swiping one more time, I can actually access the dialer so I can make and receive calls. And if you do miss a call, I did receive that as a question on the unboxing video. If you do miss a call and you have that as a notification sitting at the bottom, you can call them back from it. Now after that, obviously we have the calendar, but then we can also jump into some of these games that are in there. Some of them are online, some of them are local, some of the updates that we have, but these are optimized to run on the external display. That's the beauty and specifically made for us here. Last thing is, of course, the weather widget. We can also add additional widgets directly in from the actual editor here. I added a music widget and of course a nearby Google Maps, as well as the stopwatch. Now, nice thing I can do if I can pinch out, I can actually go into the full view of here, but I can also actually organize the panels the way I want them. I can also add additional ones, as you're also able to go in directly into the system and see the additional ones that you're missing. If there is one that is supported, you can add it from there. And then of course from there, just go back into your home screen and you're pretty much set. It is a continuous loop, so if you go from one side, you can go to the other. And what I really like about them, let's say I do open up an app, let's say like Maps. Let's say we open up an application like this and I'm starting a navigation. I can actually continue it directly on the inside display. And you can customize those applications that don't end up having to relaunch. One of the things that I noticed right away when we first started getting used to this device was the fact that whenever I opened up an app, it automatically relaunched the application. So if I closed it and go into the lock screen, it didn't continue. That continuum option needs to be set, and you can do that by app in the system and customize the experience. Swiping it away, it just takes us home. Opening it up, we have access to the beautiful, again, 6.9 inch, 165 hertz here, 1080p panel, and again, 120 that we have here on the Razr Standard Edition. You notice we have those notifications sitting there, all the experiences in there. Android 14 under the hood, a lot of customizations. I will say one thing I did notice is Ready For has been officially rebranded to be called Smart Connect. Now, it's exactly the same as we've had it before. What you're doing here, essentially, it's a wireless Ready For. You can connect to a display, and what I'm showing you guys is a quick sample right now, and it enables us to actually become wirelessly connected to that display, sharing content in either the standard view mode, which means you can do applications, movies, conference calling, as well as just basically gaming. And that allows us to actually go through, control it directly with the actual touchpad that we have in here, either in a mouse style or as far as a dial pad situation. The benefit though is if, let's say, you want to turn all of that and just mirror your display, you do that directly wirelessly. As long as you're connected to the same Wi-Fi as the TV, you should be able to do that. And this will also work over devices that support Chromecast. As long as they support the ability of casting to them, this should be a pretty simple solution for us. And I love the fact that it's present on both the Standard and the Plus. Easily accessible directly from either the notification panel, if I can swipe over to get to it, and I can launch it. You can see it right now, Smart Connect is turned off right there. But if I click it here, it jumps back into the UI itself, or you can actually just make the app shortcut right there. There is a new game launcher that you're able to install and customize. When it comes down to performance, we're getting 1955 on the single core and 4929 on the multi-core in performance mode here on the Razr Plus, and 1013 and 2968 on the Razr standard, well, the Razr 2024. The difference obviously is mid-ranger processor and of course more of a flagship experience. Although we're not going with a full 8 Gen 3, I feel like the experience that we're going to get here will not be diminished by the fact that we have an 8S Gen 3. You won't notice the difference, and honestly, for the most part, everything will run as beautifully as you can expect it. Gaming on this device on the inside display or even on the outside display will not be disappointing, because that's one of the cool things on this. Now that we have a larger display, not that I recommend you playing games like this, but let's say you're one of those guys that just want to be able to basically flex for some reason, and you want to be able to play, let's say, Call of Duty. So you can actually go ahead, let's go ahead and reduce the volume here. I'll give it a second to finish loading. And overall, what you're going to get here is an experience that's tailored for this size form factor. So you can play it, you can customize it, you can go into it. Again, the display will go to 165 Hertz. That's similar to what we had before. Let's go ahead and allow the notification. And what it's going to do is basically format it for the external display. It does not support the formatting, so you can't just go sideways. You're going to basically just get access to it exactly as you'd expect. So if we go in here, we can go into the settings section. I can jump in directly in and see that we are supporting ultra refresh rate in here, as well as capped at 120 frames per second, since that's the maximum for the game. But we'll talk about gaming in just a little bit. I do want to talk about some of the experiences when it comes down to cameras. So again, we talked about the 8S Gen 3. That's going to be the processor that we have in here. 4K capability is present on both the inside display and the external display functionality. Meaning, if I start watching, let's say I want to record a video, I can start by going in directly into the video mode, and I can jump down and I can see I can record 60 frames per second at 4K at 9:16 aspect ratio. This also reflects on the fact that if I want to start recording video using the external display, absolutely fantastic, same experience, but now we can see what's going on so that we're a little bit more aware and obviously frame ourselves a little bit better. Same resolution, just the viewfinders on the front. We have access to the nice little funny faces here to allow us to essentially what it's doing is it makes it something that the kids can actually focus on and they can look at it, and while they're doing so, you're getting some of those amazing pictures. There's also a big push and a big emphasis on Gemini and some of the functionalities that we have built into this. Google has had a lot of input into how they want to basically, or they're envisioning AI built into this camera system. So when we're taking photos and we jump into the actual camera, let's go ahead and disable the actual viewfinder in here. And what I mean by that is some of the images that we're using now, we're also able to get them enhanced. So basically a post-processing that's done in collaboration with Google to give us better images than what we've seen before. And that's going to work basically on the main sensor, and again, the 2x digital and the 4x, that's going to be the telephoto lens that we're using in here, and you can see the resolution. We don't have an ultra wide, and again, this was something that I noticed that quite a bit of times I was actually looking for something like that. But on the other hand, in the other areas where I was taking some of those images, because you're going to notice here in the library that I have in there, I've taken a lot of pictures. Capabilities as far as what we get here, 4K 60 frames per second as far as video recording, which is definitely very nice. And when it comes down to the Razr, that's going to be one of the differences, mostly limited by the processor, I feel like. But as far as the capabilities of what you're able to do here, we are able to shoot in 4K, but it is going to be capped at 30 frames per second. If I go to 60 frames per second, it does drop down to full HD. So I need to actually go back, change it to 4K, and at that point, again, 4K 30 frames per second. But it won't be any disappointing experience. I think the sensors that we have in here, again, the ultra wide will definitely be a nice experience. Although when you want to get in a little bit closer to the subject, this is where the Razr Plus wins in every single situation. Recording video content on this is absolutely a unique experience. Foldable devices offer us the ability of using them and using their main best cameras while still be able to be visibly active in the actual conversation, meaning I can see myself recording this video and I'm using the best camera on this device. The upgrades that we have here from both the standard Razr and the Razr Plus are substantial. The fact that we have a 4-inch display and a 3.6-inch display on the bigger, well, on the Plus, on the 4, and then the standard 3.6 is substantially bigger than anything else. I mean, even considering the fact that Samsung's releasing obviously a brand new phone tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of things coming up there, a lot of hype around it. But when you start looking at the fact that the affordable version of this device is going to be coming in at a much lower price with a bigger display than what we're getting on the Samsung side, is crazy. The 7300X processor that we're getting here from Dimensity is a very capable processor. It isn't going to be flagship experience, but it's powerful enough to give you great battery life and a well-balanced experience when it comes down to capabilities of things you could do. There are some things that are actually a little bit better, I feel like, on the standard Razr over the Razr Plus. Namely, I will say that I found it after testing this device and the other device over time that I found myself looking for the ultra-wide a little bit more than the telephoto. Although the telephoto on this provides us really
good images and a much more natural drop, basically in the focus when you're working with, portrait shots, or even when you're trying to get a little bit closer to the subject. So a combination of the two would have been nice, but at this point, if they had to make a decision, they gave the telephoto, obviously, to the big guy, the Razr Plus. And then, of course, they went with this ultra wide, which is typical to what we had last year. But the upgrades are substantial. A flip phone in 2024 with the capabilities of the Razr Plus and the Razr are amazing. I wish they included the charger in the box the way they kept it in the European market under the Razr Ultra, the 50 Ultra that they have, and the standard Razr 50. But again, it's not like going to be like a showstopper that you can pick up a 45-watt charger and just charge your device easily. So I hope that this is a good video and audio experience from the front-facing camera and the front-facing display on the Razrs from 2024.
Both of these devices support stereo speakers, and one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about, obviously, is the fact, how do they sound? Now, obviously, you can use them in open or closed form, but we're going to go ahead and play a quick sample. This is our favorite song, NCS Release. This is a jumbo by Alex Crindo, so go ahead and make sure the volume is set at 100%. We're going to start off with the standard Razr 2024.
Jack it up.
Now, obviously, the audio does go away because the screen does actually shut down. But the experience, as you can hear, the sound actually sounds pretty good. Let's go ahead into the Razr Plus.
Jack it up.
Both of them sound very nice, although I feel like that the Razr Plus definitely has a little bit higher decibel and sounds a little bit more pronounced. The experience is not going to disappoint. At a more affordable price, the Razr 2024 is absolutely a steal when you think of the fact that this is a foldable device that features the same technology, which is almost non-noticeable crease that we have in here. And this is something to be said again with Motos and approaches to what they have here, because this is last year's edition, and look how thin and how small and how non-noticeable it was last year, and they were able to continue it, and this is a year later. So what you're getting here is a durability experience that is going to last, and it is present on both of these devices, and it is not compromised. So we're going to talk about gaming on both of these devices. Again, the fact that we can get up to 120 Hertz on either devices on most games is going to be the basic experience that I will say. The 8S Gen 3 and the 7300X are going to play games absolutely fantastic. You can play games on the inside display or the external display. The biggest difference, obviously, is that the Plus can go all the way up to 165 Hertz, where the standard only goes up to 120. And in my experience, most games max out around 120, and Call of Duty Mobile supports both of those, which is very nice. As far as the actual experience and everything else, for the most part, the RAM and storage configuration is going to be where you're going to be able to kind of customize the experience. On the Plus, you're able to go all the way up to 12 gigs of RAM, and on the standard, you're able to get that 8 gigs of RAM. So this is where you kind of need to set your expectations. Although Moto's UI is pretty much light and it doesn't really bog down the system over time. And I've used devices from them with 8 gigs of RAM in the past, and it hasn't been a big issue. The upgrade on the battery on both of these devices are definitely going to be noticeable, because this is something that we've asked for before. And why does the smaller one have a bigger battery than the larger one? It's because the smaller one has a smaller display than the bigger one. So when you're putting in more tech and you're putting in better things, unfortunately, battery has to have a little bit of a compromise, but it is still an improvement over last year. The 8S Gen 3, great processor, great experiences. I'm sharing with you guys a lot of the images now and the videos that I've taken with both of these devices. And the reality of the matter is, in good lighting and in good day, for the most part, everything is going to run as beautifully expected. The enhancements that we have here in collaboration with Google makes it so that the images come out very nice and very vibrant. I call them social media ready, and that's the experience on both of these devices. In low light, I feel like both of them perform very well on their main sensor. The Plus performs a little bit better as well on the telephoto, because it's using another 50 megapixel camera. This is where the standard kind of suffers a little bit, because we're still using last year's 12 megapixel camera, so the experience is not as pronounced, but again, on the main sensor, both of them are going to provide you a great experience, like sunsets and some of those images I'm going to show you guys. And I'm making sure to label for you guys which ones we're taking with which. And this is the 2024 edition for both the devices that were released at the same time. Last year, we had more of a staged release where the standard edition came out much later, and I felt like a lot of people didn't really notice or gave enough love for that. Right now, if you're starting to pick up one, they're going to be available hopefully in the near future for pre-order. You're going to be able to pick up whichever one you feel like will fit your budget, as well as the capabilities that you're looking for. And for me, I hope that this video has portrayed that to you, and it shares with you guys all the benefits of both and which one should fit for you. I know a lot of people probably don't really remember this, but back in the old days, this is what the original Razr used to look like. If you remember this note, you know exactly what it looks like. So they have this as an Easter egg. It's present directly in the notification panel. You just swipe it down, swipe to it, and launch it. And you have access directly, obviously, to the OG Razr and with the UI, of course. But you can make calls, you can touch it. But for the most part, this is just a nice, fun thing. Let's go ahead and press hold. And this is how you used to shut it down. And it takes you back to the standard UI. Like and subscribe as usual. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you to Motorola for allowing me to check them out. And in my opinion, even in 2024, with all of the rumors that we're seeing, these two make a compelling recommendation for anybody looking to get a Z Flip or even a flip phone in 2024. If you're not looking for a foldable, this is a different market there. For flip competition right now, I feel like it's fierce. I really hope that obviously what we get from Samsung when we find out what the Z Flip 6 is going to offer us is compelling enough to give us even more competition in this round, because the more they compete, we benefit. I'll see you guys in the next video.